The name Pacific Ocean, or Mar Pacifico, as we know, was given by Ferdinand Magellan and his exploration group when they crossed the Pacific in November 1520 to March 1521. They made the crossing without encountering any unpleasant weather, and so they called it Pacifico. Magellan's famous crossing gave Europe an image of the Pacific as a new world ready to be explored, conquered, and colonised.
It is an ocean dotted with islands. But what was really the experience of these explorers? Antonio Pigafetta, the Venetian scholar who was a member of Magellan's exploration group, said that when they entered the Pacific, one of the great sights was the abundance of fish. He recognised and named a few like albacore tuna, mahi-mahi, sardines, and a lot of flying fish. We can imagine a pristine ocean teeming with life as if the world was just created the day before. It reminds us of the creation story in the book of Genesis, when God said on the fourth day, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Genesis 1, 20-21.
In her book, A Greater Than Solomon Is Here, Claire O'Brien gives an account of how the ocean presents itself to a Solomon Islander chief in comparison to the explorer's view. The islander views the great ocean as a darling sea. It danced along the shore, strewing bright twigs of coral and shell fragments, toys for his children. In season, silver shoals of tuna twinkling in the waves that tempt the seagulls and lure the fishermen. In gentle weather, it crooned and hummed the tunes of 1,000 eons. When the koraboo, the northwesterly monsoon winds, blew annually and writhed on the beaches like a whale in labour, the oceans provided his food, his tools, his road and bridge to other islands. It was his friend and his foe. It was half his world, the mysteries of good and evil, past and present, of life and death, were wrapped in all its pervasive presence.
For the explorer in quest of certainties, the ocean is a harsh carrier and has an obdurate side, hiding its riches, exposing its infinite stretches, its seeming endlessnesses, its bare horizons. The Pacific Ocean is a sea of islands, where all inhabitants, humans, sea creatures, animals, birds, insects, trees, and all life forms are intrinsically related to one another. This relational dynamism is part and parcel of the spirit of the Vanua in Fijian. Vanua is a concept highly esteemed in Fijian culture. It literally means land, like Wenua in Aotearoa, Whanua in Tonga, Whanua in Samoa, and in the Cook Islands it is called the Enoa. The Vanua also means the people of that land, the sea connected to it, marine and territorial animals and birds. All are related and serve one another. Where does this relationship originate from? The Trinity provides a blueprint for creation, according to St. Bonaventure, since the relationship between the Father and the Son/Word, united in the Spirit, is the ground of all other relationships.
It is a relationship that can only derive from God's self-giving love and wisdom that breathes life in Oceania. Elizabeth Johnson says that in the infinite mystery of self-giving love, the Creator Spirit calls the world into being, gifts it with dynamism, and accompanies it through the byways of evolution, all the while attracting it forward towards a multitude of endless forms most beautiful. She concludes that God's bounteous personal love pours itself out in empowerment of a creation that is transient and vulnerable, yet resilient and generative. A creation that, without this love, would literally be nothing at all.
The Vanua, this sea of islands, viewed in this dynamic relationship, is the context and identity for the churches of our region. The territory of Oceania is primarily ocean rather than land. The Pacific Ocean extends over 1/3 of the surface of the planet and is the largest geographical feature on Earth. More than 20,000 islands are found in this water continent. The Pacific Ocean can modestly boast the world's deepest marine trenches, its longest coral reefs, its most active volcanoes. The scenic beauty of its atolls and lagoons are the delight of every photographer. Since they set sail from Southeast Asia around 1500 BC, Oceanians have made voyages across this water continent without the help of modern navigational aids. These navigators or wayfinders use the fundamental elements of the sun, the moon, the stars, the wind, the ocean currents, and clouds as guides to allow them to embrace the oceans as pathways rather than obstacles. The ocean was never seen as a barrier. It was a bridge or highway for building and maintaining relationships with other island nations. The sea was the link that held Oceania people together. In this context, they are people of Oceania who view the ocean as an extension of their being.
Traditional calendars speak about the relationship of marine life, plants and birds. The flowering of a certain plant and the spawning of a particular fish can indicate a change in the season. Everything was connected. They were familiar with the trade wind ocean swells, which typically flow northeast or southeast. The lagoons of Pacific atolls can be seen reflected on the underside of the clouds. Bigger and more clouds indicate mountainous islands in the horizon. Flight patterns of birds, floating debris or vegetation, and the types of fish in the area help determine the proximity of land. They knew this because they were connected to and could communicate with nature. They could read the natural world like a book who reveals itself to them, allowing them to forge a kinship with creation. St. Bonaventure said that the first book of Revelation is the book of creation. Creation can teach us a lot of things. Oceans teach us about the interconnectedness of all God's creation. Even the vast inland regions of Australia are affected by the life of the oceans, which determines the weather patterns of the globe. They teach us about the vulnerability of people and planet.
Today, there is a disconnection because we have not been responsible caretakers. Relationships have been undermined because of pride and greed. In the words of Ilia Delio, the book of creation became unintelligible, like a foreign language to us. Creation is crying with sea level rise, coral bleaching, and sea acidification, altering food chains and food supply to people. The climate crisis should be viewed with urgency because it's a matter of survival. One thing we can gather is that Oceania people are facing great uncertainties. Sea level rise has forced people to relocate. Extreme weather conditions affect human security, economic sustainability, and their future survival. The decisions made today will be important for the region's future tomorrow.
How do we care for the ocean? Renewed awareness through storytelling, or Vei Talanoa. Vei Talanoa invites everyone to tell their story regardless of age, social status, or gender. It involves telling your story and also listening. In Vei Talanoa, everyone is a storyteller. You are invited to tell your story across cultures and diverse social statuses. We cross platforms and join in a sacred space that has existed since the beginning of creation. It is the great tent of Talanoa, the big bur, the fale. The tent of Talanoa, or meeting place, raises awareness of being part of, rather than separate from others and creation, and viewing the ocean as an extension of being Oceanian. Through Vei Talanoa, the stronger one in the tent can give guidance and a helping hand to the vulnerable. Vei Talanoa can include traditional leaders, church leaders, government, scientists, and the local people. Through Vei Talanoa, we also listen to how creation tells its story.
We are called to have compassion and empathy like the one who stopped to help in the parable of the wounded one, and to be vulnerable like the vulnerable. To be moved with compassion is the story of the cross. It is to be Christ-like, reflecting his self-emptying, kenosis, and self-humbling. God becoming human, becoming a slave and accepting death on a cross. Pope Benedict sees God as suffering with us in the Word made flesh. To be vulnerable like Christ, who Johnson describes as taking a tremendous swoop from the divine form to crucified human form, tracing an arc of divine humility, credits the incomprehensible God with having a seemingly non-godly characteristic, namely the ability to be self-emptying, self-limiting, self-offering, vulnerable, self-giving. In a word, creative love in action.